What's up everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of my State of PlayStation Studios series. For this episode, we're looking at Polyphony Digital, who are the developers of PlayStation's highest selling franchise in Gran Turismo. Let's go over Polyphony's 30-year history to understand how they've been so successful. But most importantly for Sony, I'll pinpoint where Polyphony found its greatest success and then compare that era to where they are in 2023. I'll also look to the future to see if they have any upcoming projects that you should keep an eye on as we get further into the PS5 generation. So, if you like the video, please do hit the like button and comment down below what you think about Polyphony. Let's get to it. Polyphony Digital is a Japanese-based PlayStation developer that technically was founded in 1998. However, the studio was actually established in 1993. They just went by the name Poly Entertainment, and it's here where we'll start the analysis. Poly's first of 3 games was 1994's Motortoon Grand Prix, which was directed by Kazunori Yamauchi. Remember that name, as he'll be coming up a lot due to being the face of both Polyphony and Gran Turismo. Just like Kojima is to Metal Gear Solid or Miyamoto is to Mario. Yamauchi developed Motortoon Grand Prix to have realistic driving that wouldn't distract from the game's cartoon aesthetic or enjoyment. And although the game only released in Japan, its 1996 sequel also came to both NA and PAL regions. While both games were received positively, they didn't bring Poly into the limelight or help elevate Yamauchi into the figure he is today. No, that ball wouldn't start rolling until 1997's Gran Turismo, which was also the final game developed under the Poly Entertainment name. Unlike Motortoon Grand Prix, Gran Turismo was a real-world racing simulator. It also took 5 years to develop, a ridiculously lengthy period that you'd rarely see back in the late 90s. So it was no surprise it used cutting-edge technology, such as being the first PS1 game to fully support the DualShock controller. However, this extended development time was worth it, as Gran Turismo was historically well received, both publicly and critically. The game shipped 11 million copies, making it the best-selling PS1 game of all time. It also scored 95% on game rankings, making it the highest-rating racing game when the site closed in 2019. Due to this monumental success, Poly were granted greater autonomy within PlayStation, and with that came their official name change to Polyphony Digital. Polyphony Digital's first game wouldn't be a sequel to Gran Turismo, however. It was a Mega Boost, a 3D shoot-'em-up that released in 1999 for the PS1. Being released so late in the PlayStation's life, a Mega Boost had some of the best graphics on the console, even with parts of the game running at 60 frames. It's also considered one of the best mecha simulation games, which shouldn't be surprising, considering that many senior developers previously worked on Sega's Panzer Dragoon series, though Yamauchi still worked on the game as a producer. Regardless of its quality though, this would be Polyphony's final non-racing game, as it was poorly marketed and thus didn't sell, especially compared to Gran Turismo 2, which released 8 months later, and just like the first game, achieved significant critical and commercial success, with a 93 on Metacritic and 9.4 million copies sold. Although upon release, players encountered numerous glitches to the point that launch discs of the NTSC version only had a maximum attainable completion percentage of 98.2%. Though to be fair to Sony, they offered a free replacement disc, which was a much tougher logistical task considering the offline world of the 90s. Regardless, I guess even back then, first-party games were overrated by video game journalists. Some things never change. And yes, I'm including Xbox and Nintendo in that too. No way is Metroid Prime a 10 in 2023, and Halo Infinite wasn't an 87 on Metacritic, even at launch. But that's a whole other argument for another video.
I've always loved cars. As a child, I dreamed of being a race car driver. But that's even less likely in Japan than it is in North America or Europe. I created Gran Turismo because I always wanted to work with cars. I didn't expect the game to sell as well as it did. It has a real driving feel and graphics very close to reality.
Polyphony Digital's next game was 2001's Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec, which was also their first game for the PS2. Though a new generation of consoles didn't alter the trajectory of the series, as GT3 also received critical acclaim with a 95 on Metacritic. It's also the best-selling game in the series, the PS2's second highest selling game, and the best-selling PS2 exclusive at 14 million copies sold. A huge feat, considering the thousands of games developed for the most purchased console of all time. Graphics were significantly improved thanks to the PS2's hardware, but this graphics upgrade, coupled with it releasing so early in the generation, meant only 180 cars were in the game compared to 650 in GT2. This would change with 2004's Gran Turismo 4, which featured over 720 cars and 51 tracks. Although originally planned for a 2003 release, Gran Turismo 4 was delayed for over 18 months, and even had its online mode removed. Yet once again, it was well received critically and commercially, with an 89 on Metacritic and becoming the third best-selling game on the PS2. Gran Turismo 4 would also be the first time an early sneak peek version was released in GT4 Prologue. This limited version was designed as a stopgap due to the 18-month delay and only featured 50 cars and 5 tracks. Fans of Polyphony wouldn't have to wait an extended period for the next game though, as Tourist Trophy, the real riding simulator, released in early 2006. This would mark the first and only time Polyphony Digital would shift their vehicle of choice to motorcycles, and it's also one of only 4 PS2 games capable of 1080i output, with another being GT4. Although it only got a 74 on Metacritic and didn't sell as well as the Gran Turismo series, Yamauchi has been discussing a potential sequel as recently as 2018, claiming it's expected by many fans. Regardless, this would be the last Polyphony game on the PS2, as Gran Turismo HD Concept came to the PS3 as a free download in 2006. Then came a proper sneak peek of GT5 in 2007, aptly named Gran Turismo 5 Prologue, in celebration of the series' 10th anniversary. This prologue only featured 37 cars, but still sold over 5 million copies, making it the second highest selling PS3 exclusive behind Gran Turismo 5, which finally released in 2010, though the extended wait was worth it for fans. GT5 included over 1,000 cars and 77 tracks. It was also the first game in the series to include online races, damage models for the cars, and dynamic time/weather effects. Yet again, it was well received critically and commercially, becoming the second best-selling PS3 game, the best-selling PS3 exclusive, and the second highest-selling game in the series at 12 million. And yes, you can blame the extended development and $60 million budget, a monumental figure at the time, on the PS3's notoriously difficult architecture. Yamauchi himself publicly condemned the Cell processor as being extremely challenging and time-consuming to work with.
What you're seeing on the screen now is 19 by 20 1080p HD, full HD. Just for reference, the average broadcast HD that you would see in the household now, this is roughly 3 times the amount of information that is shown on the screen in comparison to that average broadcast HD. Extending that example to GT4 played on PlayStation 2, the difference is 12 times.
Although there was a 6-year wait before the full versions of GT4 and GT5, there was actually a mainline title called Gran Turismo for the PSP in 2009. Fitting a full-scale Gran Turismo on the PSP was challenging, with Yamauchi citing memory space as the main problem. However, this was overcome as GT runs at 60 FPS and only takes up 1 GB of storage. Yet despite Yamauchi's insistence that it's a full game due to the large number of cars, you could argue it's not, as there's no traditional career mode nor the ability to upgrade the cars, which resulted in a series low of 74 on Metacritic. GT PSP also sold a series low of 4.6 million units, which actually still made it one of the best-selling PSP games, as piracy was rampant on the portable platform. Nonetheless, considering the technical limitations and reception of the game, it's no surprise Polyphony shifted its focus entirely back to the console market with 2013's Gran Turismo 6, which set a series high for both the number of cars and tracks at 1,247 and 100 respectively. But whilst a shift back to consoles made sense, it was the choice of console that surprised many, as GT6 released exclusively for the PS3 in December 2013, 1 month after the PS4 launched. Even back then, I thought it was weird that Sony's biggest franchise was going to skip all the momentum the PS4 had leading up to its launch. Perhaps Yamauchi wanted at least one more game on the PS3 to make the troublesome process of developing on the notorious Cell architecture worth it. But then due to the difficulties of the Cell, it would be too much work to create a PS4 version that would run on completely different x86 architecture. Regardless of the reasoning, it certainly wasn't the correct choice, as GT6 received an 81 on Metacritic and sold 5.2 million copies, both of which are a series low for the mainline console games. This really isn't surprising to me, as I knew even back then just how ready gamers were to move on from the PS3 in 2013, especially with how well Sony had marketed the PS4 leading up to its launch.
I'd like to announce today that we are developing Gran Turismo 6 for the holiday season this year.
あともう一つ大事な点、グランツーリスモ6は、今年のホリデーシーズンにプレイステーション3で発売になります。
And another important announcement is that Gran Turismo 6 will be appearing this holiday season for the PlayStation 3 platform.
はい、それではですね、GT6 の、
Due to GT6 releasing so late in the PS3 generation, it meant that Gran Turismo wouldn't come to the PS4 until over half the generation had passed, when Gran Turismo Sport released in late 2017. And even then, it only launched with 168 cars and 29 tracks, with DLC increasing that to only 338 cars and 82 tracks. In the end, GT Sport sold 8 million, which was an improvement over GT6, but still lower than every mainline game that released before it. It also received a series low 75 on Metacritic, mainly due to the online multiplayer focus, although a more traditional single-player campaign was added via a free update. Perhaps by calling it GT Sport, it wasn't viewed as a mainline entry despite Yamauchi's insistence that it was. At least he was happy during development this time, due to the PS4's x86 Easy architecture. Finally, it's worth quickly noting that GT Sport supported Sony's PSVR headset, though it was limited to just a couple of modes. This would change with Polyphony's most recent game, Gran Turismo 7, which was the first cross-gen game in the series as it launched on both the PS4 and PS5 due to the consoles sharing the same architecture. GT7 also brought back a traditional single-player campaign where completing tasks in GT Cafe unlocked new modes, cars, and tracks, and also reintroduced dynamic weather/time, which was absent in GT Sport. All this resulted in a solid 87 on Metacritic, with 6 million copies sold in 9 months. But unfortunately, like with GT2, actual players were more critical of aspects, like the constant online connection for even single-player modes like GT Cafe. Then weeks after launch, GT7 was subject to such harsh Metacritic review bombing that it became the lowest user-reviewed Sony-published game. This was due to updates that increased the required time to unlock rewards with in-game currency that already felt grindy to begin with, which therefore encouraged microtransactions. The outcry was then exacerbated when Yamauchi defended the marketplace, where some cars cost $200, stating it was important they reflected their real-world rarity and value. He did, however, apologize a few days later, gave early adopters $10 worth of in-game currency, promised to balance the marketplace over the following month, and apologized for a multi-day outage of the GT servers that limited what modes functioned due to the always-online requirement. And since then, there hasn't been a major controversy as far as I could tell. GT7 is in much better shape, especially with the free update that added full compatibility with PSVR 2 for all the modes. And by all accounts of the people who have tried it, this is the best experience for the headset currently.
Hello, I'm Bella Ramsey, and I'm about to take my 5th driving test. I'm a bit nervous, haven't had much time to practice, but that's fine because I've got the PlayStation VR 2 and Gran Turismo 7 to help me out. Be like I'm actually driving, right? Let's do this.
This is so cool! Oh my gosh, that's my car. Yes! Stop drafting me! No! Yes! Did I fail again?
You have to teach me how to do that. But yeah, no, I got a failure. There's
What?
You were doing 80 and a 30.
I'm not teaching you unless you pass me.
That's bribery. Tell your parents.
So now that we've gone through their 30-year history, how should we look at Polyphony and their place inside of PlayStation Studios? First off, you have to give them their flowers. Gran Turismo has sold over 90 million units, making it the highest-selling PlayStation IP. That alone deserves major respect, and although it's clear that Polyphony's most successful period was during the PS2 era, that doesn't mean Polyphony in 2023 is a disappointment. Their most recent game sold 6 million copies in 9 months and is considered the best experience on PSVR 2. There's numerous studios out there that could only dream of this level of success, including many within PlayStation studios. And yes, it would be careless of me to not bring up Xbox's developers in Turn 10 Studios and Playground Games. Their continued success over decades, with both Forza Motorsport and Horizon, have undoubtedly helped take some shine away from Polyphony, because not only did they bring strong competition, they outclassed Gran Turismo in some respects. Again though, that doesn't mean Gran Turismo games haven't still been great, and that doesn't stop Polyphony from playing a big part in PlayStation's future. In fact, despite GT7 only releasing a year ago, Yamauchi has already commented publicly about their next game, stating the team have already picked a theme and development has started, so for fans of the franchise, you should be excited. Even though I personally don't play Gran Turismo games, as a fan of the Digital Foundry side of tech, I can't wait to see how Polyphony take their real-world racing franchise to the next level, now that it will be a PS5 only game, although I wouldn't bank on hearing more soon. Anyways, what do you think about Polyphony? Are they outclassed by Forza now? Or could Forza Motorsport 2023 also be a Redfall level misfire? Let me know in the comments, and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next episode, and have a great day.